Hello, and today I'm here talking to Catherine Jones, who is a copywriter. But first, Catherine, let's cast our minds back. I haven't asked you how many years, and I'm probably not going to because it's probably not very polite. How many years ago? But your original motivation for becoming a teacher, were you one of those, don't know what else to do, might as well teach, or did you always have a burning desire to be a teacher?
No, it was definitely I needed a job, and I thought, what can I do? So I did an English degree, and I should say both my parents are teachers, so I'd always been like, I'm never going to be a teacher. Um, and but I graduated with an English degree, and I was like, spent a year applying for all sorts of jobs, not getting anywhere, and temping, which is always fun. And I needed to do something, and I was like, well, what can I do? And I kind of knew that teaching would be a good fit for me. I'd done a lot of work, voluntary work with kids, and I'd been in my mum's classroom a lot. She was a primary teacher in the village school, and I just kind of, it felt like a natural fit for me, even though it wasn't my first choice.
Right, yeah. Okay, so you became an English teacher. So how long was your teaching career?
It was nearly 17.
17 years. Yeah. Okay. And was that just always in the same school or did you move schools?
I mixed it up a lot actually. The I first went. I suppose I was always looking for something. I didn't really know what, but I was looking for something, and um, it was always up 2 to 3 years before I had itchy feet, and I was like, I want another challenge or a change of scene, or I moved to a different town, and so I started off being very pure, being very much that I'm in it for my subject. And as the years went on, it became more about pastoral stuff. And um, I actually had a few years where I was doing several different things. So there was a whole scheme. I don't know if you remember where, and I think it was the Labour government did one-to-one tuition. They put a lot of money into one-to-one tuition. And I went self-employed and had 3 schools that I was doing a day a week, one-to-one, and then a paid part-time role at,
Okay.
yeah, at
So
a sorry. Yeah, so but I think that just kind of illustrates how I was scouting around for stuff quite
mm,
early on. And then I went back to full-time and did SEN that route. And then my last role was managing a unit for emotionally vulnerable teenagers who dropped out of school. And that was probably the best job I ever had. But yeah, I did a lot of different things along the way.
so I mean I probably good 10 years before I left started thinking about leaving. How soon did you sort of run out of ideas of how you could do different things within teaching and start looking outside, thinking about looking outside?
I think it wasn't really until in my last role, that managerial role, which I really thought would be it for me. I thought this is what I've been looking for. You know, it was 50-50 teaching and pastoral, a lot of really challenging casework. I really enjoyed that. But what happened was the government shifted the parameters of how Ofsted were assessing education centres and pupil referral units. So the remit changed from having quite an open, creative remit to deliver the core subjects and then basically do what you needed to do to get them back into school. So we did lots of trips, we did loads of enrichment, loads of art, music, things like that. That changed. They eradicated the criteria and said, right, it's now about academic progress, and we're going to compare you to secondary schools, mainstream schools. And then the enhanced accountability, I don't know if you were still in teaching when the verbal feedback stamps came in, and you had to prove you were having conversations with the students by stamping their books, and book looks became a thing. And that all just got a bit out of hand. And I was, as that, the creativity that you could have in a alternative provision. As that got narrower and narrower, I began to kind of feel like I needed to do something else.
Yeah, right. So would you say that the choice of being a copywriter was a no-brainer? Had you already, or was there a catalyst? Did somebody say to you, oh, you could be a copywriter, or did you arrive at that conclusion yourself?
So it wasn't something I found straight away. I actually left teaching to have a baby, and my position wasn't seen as one that could be part-time. So I was kind of giving a gentle shove, I think, and I was like, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mum. I'm going to be an amazing stay-at-home mum and embrace it. And yeah, I didn't really get on with that. That wasn't for me.
How long did that last?
I think it was a year. I gave it, and I really went for it. We did classes every day, and we were, I was full on. My child is going to be this, a genius, well-adjusted, and it was a lovely time. But I found the kind of loss of identity I'd attached to my teaching career. I found that very difficult to deal with. So when people go, "Oh, what do you do?" and you go, "I'm a mum," they're like, "Oh," and I'm like, "I used to be a teacher," to give me that credibility. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I felt the loss of that more than I expected to, actually. So then I had an opportunity to start. I actually started a Facebook group locally sharing events for parents and children, and I was approached to do that as part of a magazine who sold in lots of regions in the country, and kind of transfer my business to them, basically. And I built it up to sort of several thousand local people. And then I was starting to sell advertising, and I was going to build this up to a business. So I did a course at the local uni, a year-long business program. And that was great, but the business just didn't make any money. So I learned loads, but it wasn't what I'd hoped it would be. And then a friend of mine who ran a marketing agency, she said to me, have you thought of copywriting? And I'd never heard of it. And she said, you used to be an English teacher, you've got all the right skills. We work with lots of people who are mums and need flexibility. And she gave me my first job, and off I went.
Right. So there you are then. You're a copywriter.
Yeah.
How did you go about honing your craft? Because obviously being an English teacher and having those transferable skills is the starting point.
Yeah.
But then how did you make that transition to fully fledged copywriter? Where did you turn for advice or inspiration? Or
so the place that I learned the most was from the copywriting community on Twitter, and that was just everything. That was amazing. I really networked as hard as I could, and I met people on there who I call friends and have now known for several years. And I really just put in the hard work with meeting people for online coffees or even in person locally, but not so much with that. I did try local networking a lot, but it never really paid off in terms of work because they weren't the right tier of people to be commissioning copywriting particularly. Yeah, that was my foundation. And then from those people and kind of, those great threads and content club where people share resources, and I just learned everything I could. I've got a massive, a few books behind me, but I've got tons of copywriting books.
yeah.
And I looked on other people's websites, saw what services they were offering, and kind of learned how to do them. And that was it.
So you think being very sort of self-starter, self-motivated, self-directing is pretty key. Some people who aren't used to the freelance world might think that as a copywriter, other copywriters would be your competition rather than forming a supportive and collaborative network, which is obviously what you found. People are not stingy with their help. Yeah.
And I think I've never seen, I have even competed with a couple of people I know for specific jobs, but I never, if I wasn't the one who got the job, I always saw that as I wasn't the right fit, or the client wasn't the right fit for me, rather than me feeling like, damn it, that should have been me. I've literally never had that once. And I think the reason behind that is just because everybody who I know in the copywriting world has a thing. Like, it may be they may be a generalist and their thing is their personality, or they may be very specific in their sector or the type of copy they write, but even the generalists have a thing, and that is who they are. So I think, you can't be the right fit for everybody, and that's okay. And I do feel there's enough work for everybody if we all position ourselves effectively.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, certainly I found one of the things that I had to sort of get my head around as a freelancer was, if I went for a job and I didn't get it, wasn't personal. It wasn't because of, it's that thing about fit, isn't it? You've got to feel, and it's the same in the copywriting world, you've got to, the client has to feel comfortable with you. You have to feel comfortable with the client, that you're on the same page with what they're trying to achieve. And it's, I mean, there might be some clients who you met with and then thought, oh no, I don't want to pitch for this job because I don't feel it. So it works both ways, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think you're assessing them as much as they're assessing you, and that's what's lovely about working in this way, is that equality of status. You're very much brought in as an expert on your own terms, and that means everything is, there's no hierarchy as such. Everything is very level, and I really like that, especially coming out of hierarchical school environment. I'm not sure I could work under a manager again. I'm too used to like doing my own thing.
It's funny, isn't it? You don't have to have been freelancing for long to realise that you are now unemployable.
I
know. So how long would you say it took between, so your first business idea you said didn't work, so then once your friend who ran the marketing agency said, you've got the skills, you could be a copywriter, from that point to when you thought, I'm making a living at this is going to work, how long do you think that was?
So I did have a false start, because about 6 months after, I started doing this just over 4 years ago. That's when she gave me my first opportunity. And then about 6 months after that, I got pregnant with my second child. And when I had him, I had told my clients that I had, and this was very much a part-time income. My husband was the breadwinner, so I wasn't going full at it, and I had another child who I was looking after as well. So when I had George, and then lockdown started, and then I was due to go back to work, and I had to say to everybody, I'm going to need another few months. So it wasn't until that July that I really had to kind of start, and I almost had to start again, because I had one client who used me regularly and 2 long-term clients who used me sporadically. So that wasn't enough to be, to bring in what we needed. I needed more work. So then I just had to rebuild and reconnect with people, do loads of networking, and kind of hustle for work. And then so what year is it now? 2023. So 22. So September 2021, I went full-time and my husband went part-time. We'd worked out that I was earning enough to be a full-time income, and he went down to 1.5 days a week and started doing the childcare, which was a nice switch for me. But it was great to have got to the point where I was like, yes, I can earn a decent living from this. But that was a huge challenge. Trying to get the consistency of money in to replace his salary was, but I needed to do it to kind of prove the point,
Yeah. So have you managed to find the holy grail of defeating the feast and famine thing that haunts all freelancers?
Yes and no. So 2 things have been really significant. One was I I've discovered that through collaborative work with some other people about brand strategy, and brand and strategy being having a lot of value attached to it, as opposed to, you know, copywriting. And this felt like a higher value thing I could learn to offer. So I did Sarah Robb's Brand Strategy Academy, which is amazing, and I recommend it to everybody. And then I was able to start offering strategy as well as kind of website copy and things, which just elevated the level of value that I was able to give clients and opened up a new world of, you know, opportunity. But having said that, I've had in the back of my mind for a long time that training and courses is going to be a good fit for me. And I'm actually writing a course at the moment, which is copywriting for marketers, corporate marketers specifically, who I've done training with, and realized there's this kind of opportunity to really help this group of people who don't get much copywriting training, but they really need it, because they're being asked to write a lot of copy. So my next move is to try and go into that, so I'm not totally dependent on client work, because I've still found, even though I've upped the kind of value of what I'm doing, I've still found that quite demanding.
Yeah. Would you say you've encountered any barriers along the way?
No, well, in terms of
anything that's made you stop and think, oh, I'm doing this wrong, or this isn't going to work, or I'm going to have to go and do supply, or
I think that, okay, the way me and my husband have done things means that, because he's now gone self-employed and he's a locum, means that he can take on extra shifts when he needs to, and we can always make that work financially, because there's never any shortage of work for him. But we haven't actually needed to do that much, which has been kind of a bit of a relief, really. But so that's the fallback rather than me looking for paid employment. But the barriers to my personal progress have been having the funds to do the next thing. So whether it's learn the next thing, professionalize your branding, whatever, businesses need money. Investing in your equipment, that kind of thing, those have been my biggest barriers, is just not having enough money to get there as soon as I want to. So a lot of the stuff I've had to do, kind of bootstrap everything. And, you know, if you do have, it's worth, if you're thinking of making a leap, having some money that you can invest into your business, because that doesn't have to make life easier, you know. But apart from that, I feel like nobody's really assessing your ability to do the job by the time you're talking to somebody, because they've already checked you out online, especially in B2B, which is what I do. And they've checked out your authority, they've checked out your ability to write. So by the time you come to talk to somebody, the chances of them going, no, you're not up to scratch, are quite low. So that hasn't been a barrier in, you know, I haven't lost an opportunity because somebody didn't think that I had the credentials for it, if you know what. Well, that I know, but if I have, I've never known. So that's been good.
I mean, that's the importance of having a website and being visible on social media, isn't it? And keeping your testimonials visible.
And having a portfolio is really crucial.
So you said for the future you see self-developing training. Have you got any advice that you would pass on to anybody who's watching this, who's got to go to school tomorrow?
I would say you have more transferable skills than you think. I'd say there is life beyond teaching. And I would say that there has never been a greater opportunity to carve out your own path as a self-employed professional. Once you venture out, it's amazing the kind of directions you can go. You can do anything, really. Especially in the kind of media marketing world, you can You know, you can write, you can create, you can strategize, you can be extremely artistic, you can, you know, there are so many ways to go, that I'd say, you know, get excited about it, and that the motivation will come when you're excited about it.
Yeah. Okay, any last words, anything else you'd like to add?
I would just say, get your money right, get your ducks in a row. You know, that is, I really feel you've got to give yourself that opportunity to make a success of it. So if you're going to do it, I mean, pivoting when you're a mum and you have the opportunity to stay at home is great for me, and I know a lot of people who've done it that way as well, which is can seem like a privilege in a way, that you have the opportunity to step back from work and take stock and do something else. But if you don't have that opportunity, then, you know, get the money together and, you know, get an idea, explore it, take training if you can, and then, you know, replacing that salary is going to be a big challenge. So give yourself a financial buffer, and then you'll be able to do it in the same way that somebody like me, who was a stay-at-home mum, was able to do it. That's what I would suggest.
Lovely. And on that note, I'll say thank you very much, Catherine.
It's a pleasure, man. Pleasure.
Bye bye.